أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Cave, joined by Josh. How's it going?
It's not too bad, alhamdulillah. Good.
Alhamdulillah, I'm excited for this episode because the Shaykh very prominent in the Sydney scene and a lot of people would know him even internationally. I think Shaykh, you have a Muslim Central account, right? Profile?
Not really.
You think? Not really? I don't know.
What's the Muslim Central? What is that?
Simple, man.
Because even online you have talks and they've gone viral. A lot of people have seen it, alhamdulillah. Even locally, a lot of people within the Sydney scene here, they'll come you do the talks at Masjid Al-Noor and stuff, alhamdulillah. So very excited for this one in your office. So yeah, welcome to Boys in the Cave, Shaykh Omar El-Banna. Hope you're doing well, alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. I'm very, very happy. It's my pleasure to be with you, mashallah, today.
MashaAllah. So we know you as prominent in the Sydney scene, but have you always kind of grown up in Sydney, or have you always lived in Sydney?
No, I actually moved to Australia in 2008. So it's been 10 years now in Australia permanently. I used to visit before that, but I officially made the move in 2008. But all my life was brought up and everything in Egypt.
So brought up everything. Growing up and studies,
marriage, everything in Egypt.
What made you want to come Sydney?
Oh, my wife is Australian.
Or Australian, Australian?
Australian.
Like
father British Australian and
subhanallah.
mother Egyptian migrant.
SubhanAllah. So I actually looked at your profile that you studied at Al-Azhar, right?
Yes.
And how long ago was this?
So basically, if you want to go back in history, I started off studying engineering. So I wasn't very religious, upbringing. Family wasn't very religious. So basically my initial start was engineering. I finished a Bachelor of Science in construction engineering from the American University in Cairo. And then when I graduated, alhamdulillah, I finished my Quran during my studies in uni. And then after this, I tried to enter Al-Azhar University, but that wasn't allowed at the time because of some political pressures and reasons in Egypt. But I started studying on the mashayikh, so basically attending private lessons with scholars, learning, all the Islamic sciences. And then I took Al-Azhar to court and I won the case.
Oh, really? Because they wouldn't admit you?
Yes, they wouldn't admit me. And my friend.
Was there a particular reason because of your background or that you...
So what happens is, it's a long story, you have to understand some Egyptian background, but Al-Azhar University in Egypt has a monopoly on religious studies.
Yeah.
So they don't allow, if anyone wants to just open a an Islamic university, for example.
Yeah.
You're not allowed clearly, or a center or something. It's not that easy, because the government likes to keep religious education
all under
control, basically, So, and in Egypt, the educational system, there's two different systems, not one. There's the Azhar system, going from primary school up.
All trying to be scholars.
Azhar and the normal sort of secular system,
Yeah.
So usually people that are for the high end of society, they consider Azhar system as
Okay, yeah.
that's like for the poor people and whatever. And so only religious families would put the kids in Azhar education. So basically, what happened is that, of course, I studied the normal secular education, and constitutionally, you can enter any university you want after you finish your studies.
Yeah.
But Al-Azhar didn't want
Someone that's
children
studying,
that studied outside the Azhar system to join Al-Azhar University. So it's a political move to decrease, they want to sort of breed you from a young age.
Okay.
And then,
Then after that, so people who are in your same situation, they studied in other degrees, now they can get in. Like, were you one of the first to do those?
Yes, now it's open.
Now it's open, okay.
I had to go to court and won, alhamdulillah. So then I had already finished my studies, but outside, unofficial. And then I just sort of entered the university just to attend the exams to get a degree.
Okay.
And then, alhamdulillah, I entered we call it in Azhar, Kulliyat al-Shariah wal-Qanun, the Faculty of Shariah and Qanun, and I specialize in fiqh and usul. It's my field.
SubhanAllah. So how was your experience in general in studying in Al-Azhar? Because we have, we know people, we hear like shuyukh and stuff that actually graduated from Al-Azhar, and they're in the dawah scene, for example, or they're teaching classes, whether it be in Australia or America. Alhamdulillah, obviously, from our perspective, it seems the same as graduating from Medina University, for example. How's your experience in general, just studying there?
So without going into too much detail, Al-Azhar University is one of the oldest Islamic universities in the world. Very, very strong, big names of traditional scholars graduate from Al-Azhar University. But what happened is, in Egypt, after the revolution in '52, when the President Jamal Abdel Nasser came and took power, Al-Azhar was basically a private institution. It was never under any government authority. Even the king of Egypt before that had no authority over Al-Azhar. It was a self-sustainable, it had awqaf, it had endowments, spending on the mashayikh. Shaykh Al-Azhar was selected by the shuyukh, all the shuyukh that taught at Al-Azhar University, completely independent, and had 1,000 years approximately of endowments. Money coming in, used to spend on scholarships and students. And then, unfortunately, after the revolution, the government sort of, came and put their hands on all these endowments and made Al-Azhar and all these endowments part of Wazarat al-Awqaf, the Ministry of Endowments. And basically made Al-Azhar a branch or a government-regulated university, And this made Al-Azhar very, very, very weak, because now, once you control the money flow, you control, and you start appointing. So people that were in favor of the rulers and in favor of the presidents and, in line with what the country wants, they got the positions and they got they became the people that influenced the university. So it started going downhill from there. So my experience with Al-Azhar was basically just attending the exams to get the degree. I actually never went and studied, attend classes or anything like that. Just attended the exams.
SubhanAllah. And what's the situation now with Al-Azhar? Is it still like very political? Is the government really influenced?
Yeah, very, very, very government influenced. There's a lot of khair and good and a lot of mashayikh and ulama, but generally speaking, it's not the best, of course. No.
So in terms of just preserving the knowledge of the ummah, they're still doing their job, but politically they can't ever say anything out of line.
Exactly. It's a government. It's a government organization now, so it's lost its oomph, it's lost its strength.
Definitely.
It's like an old man that lost barely walking.
That's something we do want to kind of segue into, because we know even in somewhere like Egypt, over time in history, where a lot of political stuff happened, for example, the Arab Spring, and with those countries in general, a lot of conflict happened, and we see that even playing out in a way where, I guess, the shuyukh don't have control of these institutions like Al-Azhar. and that's something we actually want to delve into. If I may ask though, were you I don't know, I forgot if you mentioned if you what year you graduated, but were you in Egypt when Morsi came into power?
No. I came to Australia 2008.
2008. Okay,
The
sorry,
revolution happened 2011.
my hearing is not the best. But,
Yeah, that's all right.
and then subhanallah, so what's your kind of experience in general then? You know, because we know a few friends told us that you talk about all those like political situations that may happen. You have insights into that kind of into that field where we feel like shuyukh probably don't talk about. Like for example, I feel like in this modern day and age, you see, you know, not belittling anyone, like alhamdulillah, like shuyukh have specialization in certain roles, but then you see in the media, especially like me and Josh probably growing up, you see like in the media Islam, political Islam, and then you suddenly hear about like words like Muslim Brotherhood or Hizb ut-Tahrir being thrown around, and you don't know how to take it in.
Yeah.
Do you think that was your kind of situation, Josh, like in regards to encountering these terms when you growing up in Sydney?
As in, the media was obviously demonizing these groups, as in anyone with a sort of political voice generally. But as to how to interpret it as a layman Muslim, as in just a general member of the Muslim public, it was, you didn't have the right information always, as in it was always politicized in some way or another.
Yeah, so we have, looking through historical lens, we've had political situations like the Arab Spring, Tunisian Revolution, also things like the Syrian Revolution. And, you know, as for example, for us in the West growing up, we see these sort of events occur. How should we, in general, react to these events? Because we see a divide in the ummah, we see, you know, divisions here and there, we see, you know, certain political groups take this stance and then the general public take a different stance. So how should we actually react to these events that actually happened in the past, you reckon?
Very much.
Right. So it's a very, very, of course, generic question, but like I'll give you my opinion in summary. So these things, these incidents that happen historically in the ummah, they're not new. So if you look at if you actually read history,
Yeah.
the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the age of Sahaba, you know, this political conflict did happen in different countries, and you know, different years, different players, different ideologies, different movements. It has never stopped. Has never stopped. You know, maybe in your
Lifetimes we don't
maybe
see it
your
much,
lifespan, you'll see 1 or 2 or 3 major, you know, changes. You know that, you know, has a political effect. But really, it hasn't stopped throughout the history of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some are very good, some are not as good, some make mistakes, some, you know, and the problem is that no movement or the reaction to these movements is never agreed upon. It will always be based on certain ulama and certain mashayikh and how they view, you know, was it really that bad? Was it good? Was it very good? You know, did it succeed? Did it fail? All of this, at the end of the day, is part of the khilaf. You know, the difference of opinion that is existing in the world. Don't forget, Islam now, we're talking about 1.7 billion human beings, you know. Different languages, different cultures, different, you know, Allahu Akbar, the variety. You know, even in the same country, so many different ideologies and afkar and opinions of how to, you know, how to bring Islam back to where it should be. So many opinions. So my advice to the youth in general would be that, number one, if anything like that does happen, one, find your facts. Because unfortunately, like I think Josh said, most of the time, usually you hear about these things from the media, or now even social media. But again, it doesn't mean that something that's not coming from the state media is necessarily, you know, 100% correct, because there's emotions and people sharing and whatever. The truth is not usually portrayed in the right manner. So, masalan, if you talk about the Egyptian revolution, what happened with Morsi and the coup that happened later, and you know, so much talk, you know, claims and accusations, and if you're not there, it's actually very hard to know the 100% reality of what happened and how it took place and what are the facts and what is it, what's a lie and what's a false accusation, you know. So number one, if you are gonna assess any of these incidents or see whether you should join or whatever, get your facts correct. Two, then apply these facts or the happenings or the call to our thermometer, which is the Quran and the Sunnah. You know, the word of Allah Azza wa Jal and the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then consult with the mashayikh and the ulama that you trust, people with knowledge and experience and wisdom. And in light of all of this, the person will come to a personal stance, you know. So regarding any movement, everyone will have his own opinion at the end of the day. You can't, you know, like something like Hizb al-Tahrir, for example, movement Hizb al-Tahrir, or like Ikhwan al-Muslimin, or like Jamaat al-Tabligh, or like any other movement that came. It's so unfair for any individual to just come and make a statement and say, that's what's right, you know. Habibi, you are just, you know, you're one person. There's thousands other than you that love this group and defend this group and know this group in depth, and you know they see the pros and the cons and whatever. But generally speaking, people, I find that people jump to conclusions straight away. In our time of corruption and fitna and fasad and lack of knowledge and widespread ignorance, the best advice is to be careful. When the person builds an opinion, states an opinion, comes to a conclusion, be very careful, don't be hasty, take your time, study, learn, then come to, you know, an opinion regarding these matters.
It's funny because you brought that up, so I want to kind of hash out what you said. You said follow the Quran and Sunnah, kind of compare it to the Quran and Sunnah and see if it's right or wrong in that sense. But touching on that, we have, for example, you mentioned Ikhwani Muslimin or Muslim Brotherhood. So obviously some people like, you know, Hassan Al-Banna. Are you related to him, by the way? No? Okay, subhanAllah.
The name Al-Banna is a trade. Banna means the builder.
Oh, okay.
So I want you to imagine, in the days, every village or every region had a family that were known for this trade. So there's actually not one family called Al-Banna, there's hundreds in separated, and maybe the origins all come down to like one big Banna, you know. But no, not. And Shaykh Hassan Banna was from Al-Bahira, an area called Al-Bahira, and I'm from Al-Sharqiyya.
Okay.
The area that Mursi came from. So
so we see Muslim Brotherhood or Ikhwani Muslimin, they want to come through the democratic system as a party to be in charge of the country, essentially. And that's one way of them wanting to implement the Quran and Sunnah in that sense, right? Rise through the democratic system and, you know, implement Sharia. So we have groups like that, right? And obviously they have their own ideology in that sense, going through that method. But then you have someone like Hizb ut-Tahrir, right? They don't believe in the, you know, democratic system at all. And so they try to, you know, come to power in through other means essentially, right? So they don't believe in the method of the Muslim Brotherhood. So we have these ideological differences on that scale, right? And both of them, I assume, I know Hizb ut-Tahrir because they're more active in Sydney, obviously, compared to Muslim Brotherhood. So they weigh against the Quran and Sunnah and they say whatever they're doing is the prophetic way, because that's how, you know, Rasulullah went about. He didn't go through democratic leadership or whatever, you know what I mean? But I assume the same can be, especially with Shaykh Hassan Al-Banna, was he really looked into what he was talking about and then made sure that it weighed against the Quran and Sunnah as well, right? So you have these ideological differences. So how do we kind of reconcile, as you can maybe talk about in Muslims in general, even the people that went through the, you know, Syrian Revolution, for example, and also how do we reconcile as youth living in Sydney, Australia, growing up? Because you hear about this, like me personally, so you learn about it like once you're at like maybe 20, like last year, you like all these Islam political, and then you have to learn, because all you learn about Islam is taqwa and iman, you know what I mean? So how do you kind of reconcile these groups, even though they're claiming, both of them are claiming to be following Quran and Sunnah, but they're obviously different?
So basically, like I said, any political ideology or any movement or incident or harakah that comes, you have to take it back to Quran and Sunnah. But I'm saying that you will differ, people will differ in their understanding and implementation of Quran and Sunnah. So that's a very, very big mistake happening in the Ummah now. People think that Quran and Sunnah is one thing. There's nothing called really, if you actually talk in depth, there's nothing really called relying on Quran and Sunnah. There's always relying on a certain interpretation of Quran and Sunnah. So in your path to Allah Azza wa Jal, when you're seeking Allah Azza wa Jal and seeking in the right way, you will have either a certain amount of information about Quran and Sunnah. You're either a scholar yourself, someone who studied, or you are someone that is a public person that relies on other mashayikh and their interpretation of Quran and Sunnah. So I'm saying, in light of this deen and this Quran and Sunnah, you need to, basically assess. When I was talking very generic, so I would dare say that Hizb al-Tahrir, Ikhwan al-Muslimin, all of these movements that have maybe thousands of followers in the Muslim world, they definitely have some backing in terms of ulama and scholars that have approved and studied and made their own ijtihad. So anyone who comes and says, oh, this is rubbish, or this is, tries to belittle any of these major movements in the ummah, I think he's, it's a big shot, it's a long shot. He's not gonna convince everyone around him with this opinion. There's others that say it does exist and it does have backing and it does have a right opinion. Wallahu a'lam, what I was talking about is, let's say for example, a new weed movement comes up, a new incident, or someone that claims something, and if you must be honest, masalan, what was very new was the ISIS, masalan, the claim of, our Khalifa comes out and says, let's see, I'm the Khalifa of the Ummah, and I'm demanding now all the Muslims in the world to migrate to me and give me bay'ah because I have land, I have authority, So something as such needed again. And look what happened. Some people were in defense, some people were attacking and criticizing, all based on the interpretation and understanding of Quran and Sunnah. In your path to Allah Azza wa Jal, you have to follow this system. There's no escape.
So would you say, okay, so kind of I'll take a different approach to it then. Would you say that it comes down to sincerity in your actions for the sake of Allah, and whatever, situation or circumstance you're in, you have to analyze it and then, weigh it against the Quran and Sunnah and do it for the sake of Allah, inshallah there's barakah. Would you say that is...
No, that's not what I'm saying. What you're saying has weight, but it's not just that. So of course, if the person wants to be guided, there are a few steps that he needs in his life in general. First, of course, is sincerity. If anything is wrong with your sincerity, you will definitely end up being misguided. Alright? So number one is being sincere. Number two, breaking what we call social pressure. So sometimes you'll find that I'm in an environment in university where everyone is, for example, I'm using an example, just, let's say everyone around me is Hizb al-Tahrir. So I find myself naturally inclined to become Hizb al-Tahrir because it's too hard to become something else, move away from movements. Let's say in Aqidah, for example, Salafi or Ash'ari, same debate. If you are brought up in Al-Qasim, for example, you lived in Saudi and all the mashayikh around you are, let's see, that's Aqid Al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah is this. It's going to be very hard for you to become an Ash'ari and proclaim you're an Ash'ari because, So, number one, of course, sincerity. Number two, being genuine, being honest with yourself, following the proof and the evidence and the study, rather than being peer-pressured or, the environment around you. Not being arrogant. Some people make a decision based on culture or family or whatever, and then finds it very, very hard to retract. So he became tabligh, for example, and his family is tabligh. And then he realizes in his study or his path to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Maybe tabligh wasn't what's right, you know, or the mistakes in it. But because he already defended it for too long, he finds it very hard to come around and make a shift, you know. So all these factors, they play. And then there's dua, seeking Allah's guidance continuously, you know. Allah, please guide me, you know, don't leave me to my hawa and desires. Sometimes the hawa and the desire take place. For example, a certain movement demands too much. You know, one of the claims, for example, that what we call a Salafiyya al-Jihadiyya made, which is the, you know, like the jihad mentality, and they say, people debate us and argue with us because jihad it's too risky, you know, you're losing your life and this and that. And I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong. What I'm saying is sometimes saying the truth hurts. It costs you, you know, it makes you sacrifice. Hizb al-Tahrir, for example, would say fighting or, you know, sort of debating Western democracy and this and that and secularism publicly and going against them and protesting and that has a price compared to a Sufi brother, for example, who's doing dhikr in his masjid once a week or a mawlid. They might say, that's why he chose this path, because his nafs won. But in all of this, all these factors play. If you are sincere, genuine, honest, seeking mashayikh and ulama, asking Allah Azza wa Jal for guidance, break the effect, the social pressure you've already zeroed, the ego, if I make all of these things, if you follow, definitely you will end up on the straight path or a form of the straight path. Wallahu a'lam.
And could you say that, or would you say that each one of those groups have some portion of the straight path, or as in like you're not necessarily not on the straight path if you follow a certain group, as long as you're sincere and through your study you've come to find that they're
alright, so
true for you?
My personal opinion is that all these groups that have basically thousands of followers, they have what we call a common denominator. If you actually look in depth, you will find that there's a lot that is agreed upon between these groups.
Definitely, exactly.
Alright, so definitely, at least in this part, someone can claim this is the haqq and this is the truth. And then they differ in certain aspects and certain approaches, you know, and this is where there's space of ijtihad. I'm one of those people that believe, and I believe this is the haqq, that the right decision or the right way is one. It's not 2 or 3 or 4. I believe as-sirat al-mustaqim is one. However, because we don't know which one it is, there has to be allowance for all of this. No one can, there's no prophethood, there's no wahi coming teaching us what's right and what's wrong in this aspect, in these circumstances. It's all ijtihad of mashayikh and ulama. It's an effort made to come to the right conclusion. So because we don't know this, you have to have allowance and space.
I want to touch on something because this kind of happened recently. Just an example of kind of cultish behaviour in regards to being part of a certain group. So for example, I don't know if I'll mention it anyway, but I'll be kind of vague in terms so no one knows like specifics. But there was a post by a certain someone, right, in the world, okay, and they're part of a political group, right, and he mentioned the opinion, because that group has a kind of different opinion in regards to Ali radiallahu anhu and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and the conflict, right? And he was having a go at Muawiyah radiallahu anhu that he had bad intentions, subhanAllah. So we know, because other brothers, when they read the post, they were saying, informing us that, you know, as Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, like, we have to be very wary, because we have to be aware that they were both Sahabi and they all had different ijtihads for whatever they did. We don't want to go into exactly what happened, but then this certain political group, they are saying bad things about Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, right? And so what happened is that there was a post, someone shared it onto a group thread, right? And a lot of practicing brothers on it. And the people who were part of the political organization, the person who posted it, they're in the same political group. But then they thought that he was just speaking from his own opinion. But then once they looked into the political organization's stance on Muawiyah and Ali radiallahu anhu, they realized that it wasn't good things about Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, right? So what happened was they went from saying that, oh yeah, it's his opinion, look, we followed that, we can't make decisions on that, instance that happened back in the past. But then when they found out that it's actually the political organization stance on it, they changed their behavior. They started defending it, and they're saying it's okay. So I wouldn't say layman, but I would say as being more objective, because I'm not affiliated with particular political organization, I saw that as cultish behavior. That just because their organization had this opinion, they feel obliged to defend it now. You get me? And it links back to what I said about sincerity, right? I feel when that occurs, to me, it doesn't feel someone sincerely speaking the truth kind of thing, because we have to follow the Haqq, you know what I mean, in this situation. And we know the scholars back in the times, they've said their opinions about this situation, and then suddenly this person comes around and who's, the speaker for this political organization. He says something different. They all agreeing with him. So would you say that in that journey to what they thought that this political organization being affiliated with them will get them to do good for the ummah, is now it's insincere because it's just affiliating with whatever the organization says. So what's your thoughts on that, you reckon?
All right, so I can't really comment about the example you gave me specifically because again, it comes down to the facts and what really happened.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna assume two scenarios in what you said. The first scenario is that these people, just because of the cultish behavior and the blind following, they had to retract what they felt was the truth or studied is the truth because the leadership said something else, then definitely this is a sign that the person is veering off the straight path. But we can also apply some husn al-dhan in saying that maybe this was their opinion, but then when they realized that the political stance or the leadership had a different view and they read their proofs, this changed their opinion, and thus they, it had weight in their eyes, so that's why they retracted or changed their opinion. So what I'm saying is, if we go back to what our, the topic here, it's about sincerity and ikhlas, and saying and not being shy or being pressured socially or in the group or whatever, calling wrong and right despite the consequences. If the person does that, he will be guided.
I want to add something else, because there's a different angle to it where you can say it's taqlid, that you're following because of the political organization, so you're not necessarily doing anything wrong from the layman terms, right? So would you say if you have to follow the kind of majority opinion of the scholars in the past in regards to issues about, for example, Ali and Muawiyah radiallahu anhu?
No, you're not obliged to follow the majority, no.
Right.
There's no obligation following the majority. However, the majority does have weight. Majority of pious scholars, this has weight, but you're not. Masalan, let's say in a fiqh mas'ala, 3 of the 4 madhab say something and 1 madhab says something else. There's no wrong on you to follow the madhab that is the minority at the time, provided that the opinion has weight and it has been established properly by proper and knowledgeable and pious ulama. No problem, inshallah. But what I'm trying to say is, again, this regarding the example you gave, we're missing a lot of facts. What actually happened? But the general rule is, if someone brushes something under the carpet, this is when you start falling in error and veering off the straight path.
Just as another question, Sheikh, even just when it comes to, like you were mentioning earlier, about people following their whims and desires in their following of certain groups, like say with an instance of oppression by the state, by the government or something like that. Some groups would say, no, you have to completely obey everything the state says, the government says. Other groups would say, no, you have to protest and have rallies to sort of go against what the government is imposing on you. This is on a more general level, apart from groups and stuff. So what would be how would we approach such situations where would it be better to sort of stay quiet and hold on to your Islam and obey the state in your public action sort of thing, or would you have to like rebel against that and sort of go out on the
Again,
straight?
it will come down to
Is it a
your
case-by-case
journey.
basis?
It will come down to your journey. The mashayikh and the scholars that you have taken as your teachers, that you trust, you've done your research, you believe that these are the people with wisdom and knowledge and ilm, they are the authentic source that you come back to. That is of course, if you are a public layman person.
Yeah.
If you're a alim, then this will depend on your understanding of Sharia. If you reach level of ijtihad, you see, you analyze, and then between you and Allah Azza wa Jal, you will come to a conclusion. You know?
But
there's no absolute right and absolute wrong in any of these
you
things.
see certain scholars using logic, they sort of validate gross injustices by governments where they kill people or massacre people in the street, and certain scholars say that's fine, that's okay, because you should be obeying the state and government. Do you get what I mean? As in, they use it to justify whatever their government may be doing. In that sense, they just follow the state completely instead of raising their voice to injustice, which is also a sort of...
I don't... look, again, because we're talking in very, very generic terms, I don't know what example or which group you're referring to, but I don't think that there's a pious scholar that fears Allah Azza wa Jal who would approve of injustice. Sometimes what happens is, in certain ideologies, is that they sort of, from an ideological perspective, believe that rebelling will cause more harm.
So they
use that. It will cause more harm, more shar, more evil will come. So I'd rather stay silent for a bit for now, as part of a long-term plan to bring something else. You know? And they use, for example, from the Sunnah, from the Seerah, things like Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah that Muhammad sallam accepted and signed, even though the terms of this treaty was clearly illogical, you know, it's not right, it's not fair, you know, but because he sallam had a long-term plan, you know. So similarly, and of course there's no similitude here really, but some groups, for example, if you talk about Ikhwan al-Muslimin, they will say, we're hijacking democracy, for example. We want to reach power and then apply Sharia, or or the democracy we approve of is not the absolute Western democracy that is taught, and you know, whatever it is, the ideology, you know, people differ. My advice is, don't jump to conclusions, don't rush, never believe you are on the absolute truth, it's my way or the highway. There's a lot of detail, there's a lot of ijtihad, there's a lot of khilaf. In your path to Allah Azza wa Jal, be honest, be genuine, be sincere. Don't stick and defend your opinion even though you are feeling in your heart it's not right anymore. Don't ride this wave of ego and arrogance. Avoid following hawa and desires. Keep making dua. Eventually you will reach the truth, inshallah.
Yeah, it's like, I feel... Sorry, because we're hammering you with these questions.
No, they're very, very normal questions, by the way.
Because, it's something that I guess we experience, and I realize this with even listening to other podcasts, right? Because they're a lot older, like we're a bit younger, you know what I mean? Like, we're just growing in this day and age, but a lot of them went through and actually witnessed events in the past, these kind of instances where they went through and they know they can talk about it, and then certain things, even like I was having a chat with a friend before this episode about, because my grandmother, she did honors in history, Islamic history, and so I went to Bangladesh and I was talking to her about the Khilafat movement in India, for example, like all this interesting stuff, because they went through it, right? And I guess for the youth here, we go through specific stuff as well, and something like the Arab Spring is very recent, you know. ISIS is very recent, and then you have, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you have social media, not just media, social media, right? And even the event of the, you know, Arab Spring it escalated due to the social media pressure, for example, right, as well. So subhanAllah, like we live in that age, right? And we also see the rise of certain groups. I'm not going to mention, not like political groups, I'm talking about like Islamic sects, you know, it could be Sufi, Salafi, or whatever, and they have a certain way of looking at political situations and then acting on it. Like a certain group I know what it look like, from what I've studied, they literally try to picture the government in the best way possible regardless of what they're doing. You know what I mean? So like I'm not like learning or anything in the deen, but it's all these questions that we have in the back of our mind, and it's about reconciling and seeing. Alhamdulillah, like even I'm not gonna sugarcoat, like Hizb ut-Tahrir is very prominent in the Sydney community, especially with the scene here, and alhamdulillah they've done so much. Like I think they've even, you know, helped me become even a more practicing Muslim purely through the dawah effort and everything they're doing for the community here. So, you know, in ideological stances we don't know where to go, because we know from actions, and even comes down to cultish behaviour, we can't just align ourselves to kind of one group. You know what I mean?
Again, it will come down to what I said to you at the beginning. It's very, very simple. I'm gonna agree. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but all this confusion, it has no answer except for this. Most of the time, a brother came to me the other day, and many people came to me before him. Say, Shaykh, I'm confused. I don't know where to go anymore. Which Shaykh, which group, which ideology? And I said to him, brother, I'm going to be very honest and a bit blunt with you. Our problem is that we talk too much, theorize too much. We had this example in school. When we were studying in school, in our HSC in Egypt, you know, certain people, when they want to study, they grab the book and they start studying. Others, they sit down and they start planning the year. Makes a schedule. I'm going to study maths in the morning and science, and you know, he spends more time trying to build a schedule for himself and actually ends up not studying at all. I think it's what many of us are doing. We talk too much, whereas really, there is approximately easy 5 years of hard work that any Muslim agreed upon activities between all these groups say is good, but we don't delve into. For example, someone wants guidance. I'm confused, I'm lost, I don't know where to go. You have the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. What's your relationship with the Quran? You know, I'm sorry, but we talk, we spend hours on Facebook debating and discussing and researching and Google and social media and whatever and following reports. Whereas the main source of guidance for me, my main weapon, I don't know how to read. I don't understand Arabic yet. You know? Why? Because that's too hard. You know, there's other social aspects and this and debating and uni and what I studied and what I know and sisters and brothers and debates and ego and a lot of problems. This is what I'm saying. You want guidance. You know? Where is your Qiyam al-Layl? You know? Where is it? Where is your crying in the middle of the night? Unfortunately, in most of it, it's non-existent. I know people that debate a lot and argue a lot and, you know, defend a lot between Hizb ut-Tahrir and Tabligh and Ikhwan al-Muslimin and that, and look at this person. Is he actually really seeking guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal? He isn't. This is why Allah said in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُم. Allah said those who actually have guidance in their life, alright, they apply this guidance in their life, Allah gives them more guidance. The problem is we want step 20 before we do step 1. Alright? So where is your proper salat? Where is your Quran? Where is your Qiyam al-Layl? Where is these things? Hizb ut-Tahrir, Tabligh, Ikhwan, Habashi, Salafi, Sufi, everyone will say memorize the Quran. Correct?
Yeah.
Where is it? You know? Everyone will say pray in the mosque. Everyone will say wake up for tahajjud and make dua. Everyone will say have good akhlaq and good manners. No group says, no ideological group says have bad akhlaq. Correct? But it is, unfortunately, not there in many of the cases. This is why I'm saying, in your journey to Allah Azza wa Jal, not necessarily you will start always with the right group. You might start with Salafi. You know, that's it. My environment, my teachers, my family, my father, my friends. I end up in a... I think in the beginning you said that maybe Hizb ut-Tahrir, mashallah, taught you a lot. So maybe that was your start. It doesn't necessarily mean that Hizb ut-Tahrir is the best way or the best group ideology in the ummah. That's just your personal experience, you know. Another person might start with Tabligh, like myself. I started Deen through Tabligh Jama'at, you know. They came, knocked on my door, put me to the masjid. It doesn't necessarily mean that Tabligh is the best movement in the world, you know. So in your journey, you will have to take these steps. Take these steps and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open your heart. Allah will show you. Allah will show you what's right, what's wrong. Maybe what's right is none of the existent. Maybe you'll be the Mahdi, you know? Maybe you are the one that will start a new group that actually is the right. All these options are there.
So, Sheikh, we actually wanted to talk to you about an incident that happened to you last week as well, if you're open to talking about it. So, apparently someone rocked up to your masjid and they essentially pretty much committed takfir against you. Could you run us down what sort of happened, the scenario?
This incident took more than actually, weight it has, subhanAllah. A lot of people are talking, a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, it sort of blew up in sort of the other
that's why
circles.
we wanted to ask you because
It's the age of
Social media, yeah.
youth and social media, mashallah.
you make us look bad now.
No, it's good and bad. Like,
Yeah.
there's pros and cons, subhanAllah. No, but basically what happened is, I had my normal class here in the morning after Fajr in the Sharia college, and Brother Kamal Saleh came to me and said to me, Sheikh, there's a brother that has made takfir of the previous Mufti of Australia, rahmatullah alayhi, the one that passed away, Shaykh Abdul Azim. Is making, people were posting, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, announcing the death of the Mufti, and this brother was basically making takfir of the Mufti and all the mashayikh of Anik. I'm one of them, So he goes, I couldn't handle myself. I entered into like a religious debate with him, and I told him, look, you're uneducated, you haven't studied, you don't know how to read Arabic properly. I'm saying what I understood, I'm not saying word for word. And please, and I told him, look, you need to speak to someone with a bit of knowledge, so why don't you come to the masjid and talk to Shaykh Omar, maybe he will, Kamal suggested myself, and he said, bring him to the masjid, maybe we can resolve the matter. So when Kamal came to me in the morning and told me the story, I go, Kamal, please, Allah Dalek, we face these brothers and things
All
like
the
that
time, yeah.
so much. It's very, very abundant nowadays. And my opinion is that usually these debates, they are not fruitful.
Yeah.
If someone says you're a kafir, he's not going to sit down and take advice from you. Basically, he's not going to sit down and listen. And I'm not interested in debating. Usually what happens is, unfortunately, these young men, they're in that phase of trying to make a place for himself or whatever. So debating a sheikh is actually, it's something that will fuel the fitna more. You'll better come back and on social media say, I debated Shaykh Omar and I said this and he said that, and probably not narrate the right, So you're actually putting more fuel on the fire rather than letting it go. My best advice when something like that happens, ignore these comments, ignore these brothers and let them die. The fitna will die out straight away.
Yeah, you don't want to give them more visibility than they already have.
Don't give them more than the weight of what they say.
Yeah.
It's like people who criticize Islam or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nowadays anyone in the Western world who wants to become famous, he can just make a cartoon about Rasul sallallahu or make a joke or intimidate Muslims, and then Allahu Akbar, all the Muslims unfortunately without thinking, without planning properly, we just start smashing the guy, reposting what he said, spreading it way more than the guy ever dreamed it will spread, and then he becomes a celebrity and a hero in no time. So you're encouraging others that also want to become celebrities to follow the same path. This is why sometimes it's best to not address what we call wannabes, So I told Kamal, this is my opinion. I didn't know the brother, I didn't read his post, nothing. I didn't know. Kamal told me, I said, brother, look, I'm not going to debate this brother. Let him be, that's my advice. So I think Kamal went back and said to the brother, look, the Sheikh is not interested in having this meeting and let it go. So that's from Kamal, what he told me. So, and then Kamal said later that the brother insisted on coming after Dhuhr to meet me. So I didn't know that he's coming, khalas, because I told Kamal. So I basically finished my salat and I jumped in my car. And I was driving outside of the car park. I saw Kamal and the brother standing at the door of the masjid having a heated debate. And I didn't know the brother, but I realized, I couldn't actually hear what they're saying, but I realized that, oh my God, this is, this looks like the brother Kamal was talking about in the morning. He must have came. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to sit in my car and watch how this goes. Inshallah, they will just leave. So I know what happens, you know. So I found this brother talking to Kamal, raising his voice, and I realized straight away that the people leaving the mosque started hearing snippets of the conversation. So one brother approached him. I know the brother. I go, did I hear what you're saying correct? I didn't know what the guy was saying. I can see from the body language that a debate is starting.
Yeah.
And then I saw one of the brothers that is known to be an ex-gangster in the area, you know, approaching the brother too. So I jumped out of my car. I went to Kamal and the brother and I go, please brother, may Allah reward you, Jazakallah khair. Have this conversation in the coffee shop. Go in the car, talk.
Yeah.
If you talk like this here, someone's gonna harm you, because people don't understand this, you know, let's have a proper debate and, you know, religious conversation. It doesn't matter, and I'm not intending, maybe that's your intention, but, you know,
everyone else,
regulars that come to the mosque, that hear that the mashaykh are kuffar, he's not gonna leave you, he's gonna, you know, he's gonna harm you, he's gonna do something, swear at you, abuse you, whatever. So please take the and I kept begging the brother to leave and, you know, leave the door at least. Go on the end of the car park and talk. Enter the mosque and talk. But it's not in the entrance of the masjid, in the doorway. So the brother started talking to me. He goes, what's wrong? And he started raising his voice to me. I'm not quoting, of course, because I can't remember exactly what he said, but the meaning is, the mashayikh of Anik, they follow, they approve of democracy, and this is kufr, and anyone Anik or something, you know, like this is kufr and that.
Wow.
So, and he's raising his voice to the shaykh of the masjid on the door of the masjid. So I want you to imagine how many people leaving the mosque that, you know, they want to show me their loyalty and their love, and they wanted basically. So someone, I think, from behind me came and hit him. So when he hit him, I grabbed the brother and I tried to move him away again.
Yeah.
So I moved him a bit away from the door, alhamdulillah. And then another brother came from where I'm saying to the brother, please leave before someone harms you. But really, from what I saw, I think one brother maybe hit him, you know, in the face, and another brother grabbed his hair. But I think after this, there's a bit of exaggeration. Like 10 people jumped. There's only like everyone else was trying to protect the brother, not you know.
Because I actually have the post, and he mentioned that. It's up to you if you want to answer or not, but he said even one guy pretended to be nice by walking me away towards the car park, wouldn't let go of pulling my hair, so I told him to stop and the other guy to shut up with his filthy swearing. Then out of nowhere, while I was off guard to even fight back due to the guy pulling my hair myself, 8 boys started swinging punches from all sides and then putting me to the floor.
8 boys?
Yeah, he said 8.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you a simple logical question. Can 8 people punch the one person at the same time? Yani,
Subhanallah. And then he's like, then putting me to the floor, throwing punches and kicks, while Omar El-Banna was laughing with them.
Well, Allah forgive him, man. Allah knows that I only left my car. I was actually leaving. I left my car to save his life.
Yeah.
You know, to protect him, because I didn't want him to get harmed. At the end of the day, he's a young man, maybe enthusiastic. He thinks he's on the Haqq, you know, trying to defend Deen. He probably thinks, you know, he's like Bilal, he's like Ahadun Ahad, like, you know.
Oh, really?
In his mind, he's probably thinking, you know, I'm serving the deen of Allah, and I went and I told the kuffar in the Masjid al-Nur that they are kuffar, and I nahayt an al-munkar. That's the mentality, you know. I didn't want him to get harmed. Allah knows that I wasn't laughing at all or anything like that.
SubhanAllah, because it's interesting that I know maybe even talking about a podcast kind of makes people know about the situation more, but then SubhanAllah, like even just because I read that post initially, it just came up on Facebook and then it started blowing up for no reason. I thought you would I thought I'd be like the one of the very, very few people that actually read the post, but then it started circulating a lot. And then you just explained to us like about having the good akhlaq, and you're actually making reasons for him in regards to his actions. So I think it's a greater idea and kind of action to show the rest of, you know, especially the youth or even Muslims in general, that there's a better way to handle and act in those kind of situations, regardless.
He's accused me, but he didn't say I hit him, alhamdulillah, which at least he's honest about that. I didn't hit him myself. But if someone calls you a kafir, why would you laugh?
Well,
like, if anything, I should be angry and shouting and screaming, you know. But really, I just tried to protect him. That's all.
And you mentioned, like, was this common back in even, like, I know in the Muslim world, do you think this is common kind of...
Oh,
you have
very
this-
common. Very common. Takfir is a disease in the ummah. It's not something new. It's always been there, never left.
SubhanAllah. And I guess they're trying to, as you said, maybe think in their mind that they're trying to serve the deen.
Yep,
but-
definitely they believe in their hearts that now he's warned and, you know, now he did his religious obligation. He thinks he's serving the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal.
So then how should the people like us, who just be nice, generous, kind, be like...
Yep, soft, gentle. If you are a knowledgeable person, explain to him where he went wrong.
His errors, yeah.
You know, if he doesn't accept, walk off. Don't make a scene. Don't make a fight. Don't give this claim more than its weight.
And Shaykh Omar, just as a final point, we wanted to ask you: so you've had various teachers in your past that you've learnt from, big scholars. One example we have is Dr. Mustafa, and we're just asking you any stories you have that you can share, that like the listeners may be
All right,
interested in hearing.
So
Something that comes to mind.
I don't know where you got this information from, but
we have our sources, alhamdulillah.
No,
We do our research here at Boys in the
Dr.
Cave.
Mustafa is more like my mentor.
Okay.
He's actually just a pharmacist. But in the world of tabligh, he was very, very active in da'wah. Years and years and years of experience in da'wah and giving lectures and talks and whatever. Very, very knowledgeable man in the relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. And he was like my mentor. He took me under his wing from a very young age, and you know, and he was the reason basically I learned my ideology. So that's my ideological side. But my ilm, I studied, like I was saying, I studied on various mashayikh, not very famous, you know, none of them is someone that would ring a bell, but, you know, very, very reliable, and of course studied in the actual university of Al-Azhar University. So,
Okay, instead of framing it like that, how about we ask you like this? If you had to pick 3 people just that you've known or throughout Muslim history just to hang out with or just spend time with, have a conversation with in a cave, because that's the name of our podcast, Boys in the Cave, who would you pick?
So you're talking about like in my lifetime, or you're talking about historically, like anyone?
We can do...
Historically, anyone.
anyone in general.
In your lifetime or not.
Hang out with them in a nice lit cave. There's a nice coffee table and good
Or
coffee.
just say hang out with in Jannah. Just
Or
spend your
even
time
in
with.
a cave in Jannah.
Yeah,
Besides the Sahaba and...
besides the
Yeah, that's everyone's just gonna
that's, that's too easy.
That's all.
Yeah, exactly. So you're talking about all right.
Scholars or
So-
figures or your own sort of...
Good, very, very good question. You took me off, off guard. You got me off guard. All right. So I would say.
No, you can take your time. It's a tough. It's a toughest question today.
Just who inspires you, the deen.
All right. So I'm gonna really, really confuse you guys. So I would say.
Some vague scholar that is in, from a sham or something.
Number 1 will be Imam Al-Ghazali.
Yeah.
Yes.
Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali. I would love to
Definitely.
sit down with this mountain of knowledge and
Just everything is written.
I'm trying to understand. The second person would be on the other side of the spectrum, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah.
Yeah.
I would love to have met him and, be in a cave with someone with this amount of knowledge and courage and, subhanAllah. And my personal favorite was Imam al-Nawawi, rahmatullah alayh. I would love to learn from Imam al-Nawawi. These would be the 3, other than, of course, the known, famous generations. These 3 people, I believe, are very, very special.
Yeah, that was pretty deep. Like, I just want to ask, you mentioned other side of the spectrum. What made you categorize Imam Ghazali?
Clearly. So, for example, you have Imam Ghazali, Ash'ari, Sufi,
Yeah.
and on the other side of the spectrum, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, Salafi, Hanbali,
Because I've been reading about this recently that because a lot of Sufis claim Ibn Taymiyyah, because he's as a Sufi as well, and then
Of course.
yeah, so should it be
no.
the same category kind of thing?
No, it's not the same category because of the aqidah
and that's
because
one.
there's
opinion.
differences.
That's one, and the other thing is the type of tasawwuf.
Yeah.
So the tasawwuf of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah is more of a Salafi tasawwuf, even though it's tasawwuf, I'm thinking about the sicknesses of the heart and how to treat them, but it's more on the literal side, come on, when it comes to, you know, the debates.
Okay.
Whereas Imam Ghazali is more on the philosophical side.
Okay. Because even me, I'm like reading Deliverance from Error, Imam Ghazali. It's just subhanAllah, like it's inspirational for me as well, because just his life going about the society he dealt with, the philosophers, for example, to come to the Haqq, not just finding Islam as the truth through, you know, obviously prophecies and all that, but through other means, you know what I mean?
Subhanallah.
And that's like personally, that's how I can relate to it as well. What about you, Josh? I've never actually asked you this question.
Imam Ghazali, definitely. And just Imam An-Nawawi, just for how he just had so much motivation to study the deen, because you hear the stories of him, like in childhood, he would abandon the other kids playing.
He was very, very special alim, alim. He struck a very rare balance between ibadah and zuhud and, you know, and knowledge of deen. He struck a balance between hadith and fiqh.
Oh, really?
Which is usually kaman in ilm. You know, you're either more inclined to fiqh or more inclined to hadith. You know, he was like in both, subhanAllah.
He sort of abandoned the physical side completely though, didn't he? Because he didn't get married.
No marriage, died at 45.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Even like Ibn Taymiyyah didn't marry.
He didn't get married. But he's also in jail. That's why. Traveling or in jail or in jihad. When is he gonna get married, man?
I was actually watched like it was a snippet Yasir Qadi. I don't know the authenticity. Obviously he's a big scholar, so he would know. He mentioned the story of Ibn Taymiyyah approaching the Mongol ruler at that time, and he approached him face to face. A lot of scholars were scared. They didn't want to say, "What are you doing, Ibn Taymiyyah?" But then, you know, with all
a lot of courage. Shaykh al-Islam definitely known for courage and not being, you know, silent when he sees wrong.
SubhanAllah, and I guess that's the inspiration we should take
Definitely.
this day and age. So, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Omar, for coming on Boys in the Cave.
Thank you so much. It was very beneficial discussion.
Jazakumullah khair. I hope I added something beneficial, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, because, you know, we, as I mentioned at the beginning, like very prominent in the Sydney community, so it's like goosebumps, you know, having this kind of podcast.
Actually, being prominent in the Sydney community is not something praiseworthy. If you hide in a cave, like Boys in the Cave, you know, and come back after 6 months, you become someone special in Sydney. So
but Sheikh, even in the rest of the Western world, like the UK, America, you're really big. Your talks, like you and say Qablos as well, just because of your style. Well, we have a very specific type of like beat down khutbah in Sydney that the rest of the Western world, they don't see. It's all like airy fairy, like in America and stuff. They don't have that sort of inspirational iman booster. We're so used to that. We just know Shaykh Omar and the types of talks he gives, but to everyone else, it's just the best thing. The
actually, you know, a very, very surprising phenomena that you will find is that the mashayikh from overseas, in general, always impress more than the national mashayikh. Generally speaking, we have a qaida that says "Mizmar al-hayy la yutrib." The flute of town does not entertain.
Is that a saying amongst the scholars?
Yeah,
oh, really? Definitely.
So, for example, you know, like if I was to give a khutbah here in Australia and people would hear, Shaykh Omar El-Banna doing an event.
Another one.
Everyone say, Shaykh Omar, he's just down the road in Masjid Noor. I'm not gonna and go to a conference to him. I was gonna go to a Thursday night talk, you know. Whereas if Nu'man Ali Khan comes from America, you know, someone's coming from overseas. And the opposite happens in the States. Because he's always there. I'm not saying he's probably better than me, but I'm just saying in general. In America, they would say, you know, different. My man, you know, he's always he's my mate. We hang out together wherever the city is, you know. But if I go, that guy is on YouTube, you know, that's unfortunately the effect of social media.
Yeah, because even for us, like starting this project, we do want to kind of have, because it's a platform or a podcast, so we have all the guests locally in the area. Because we realize even maybe you know yourself, you know, UK, US, they have a lot of, you know, dawah material online. Obviously, it's very accessible. And for us in Sydney, there is obviously, but there are some hidden gems in the community as well. So it's about gathering like someone like yourself that people know in the community with people we can really benefit from as well. So that's what we're trying to build at Boys in the Cave, inshallah. So I hope, inshallah, in the future we do another conversation. It could be like,
Inshallah.
I don't know about like, you know, if you're Salafi Sufi, we could probably talk about that, talk about the Tasawwuf maybe, inshallah.
Next cave session.
Yeah, inshallah. Inshallah.
SubhanAllah. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at boysinthecave@gmail.com or find us on Facebook, and you can follow our journey through Instagram. So please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes, as that greatly helps us. So for people who have iPhones, you go on your podcast app, you search up Boys in the Cave, you subscribe obviously, go scroll down, you give us the 5-star and leave a review, inshallah, because that helps us boost our rankings up on iTunes, inshallah. It creates more exposure. And even if you want to, you know, talk to us or even meet us, guys, you know, you can literally message us, inshallah. Like, we're pretty accessible. So from our special guests, Shaykh Omar, Josh and myself, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing you off. Assalamu alaikum.
وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قوم اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا